Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a video about 4 stars again. I'm sure you haven't gotten tired of this topic. I feel like Motsa has brought on a new generation of people that broke their cognitive functions once he came out. I don't know why this is, but this video specifically is about the value of 4-star only runs and also the value of 4 stars in general. Now, before I start this video, I just want to say please do not harass people that actually make E6 4-star only runs because, yeah, they're just playing the game how they want it to be and they just want to be excited, like showing you people these clears. So don't be like, don't be weird. I guess that's the easiest way I could say it. But yeah, let's move on to the video, right? So first of all, we should clarify why a lot of people have these misconceptions and why they have certain biases to 4-star only runs. By definition, a 4-star only run uses lower rarity units, so only 4 stars, and light cones that are also lower rarity, so sometimes 3 stars too, to tackle a certain piece of endgame. Now, the concept of this by itself has a lot of connotations, obviously, and it has a lot of advantages that is seen by the community. Now, first of these is that the team is cheaper, because it is pretty obvious that since a lower rarity unit is easier to get, then building a team full of lower rarity units is a lot easier than a higher rarity full team unit, right? And to add to that, the teams are more accessible. A full team of 5 stars is not as accessible, and 4-star teams are something that every account will generally have. Now, the last point is that the teams of 4-star only teams are beginner friendly, since 5 stars are slower to come out and they are also slower to rerun. 4 stars are just a lot more beginner friendly because of that, apparently. Now let's go one by one to all of these points and I could give you the reality or the truth of it, for example. I guess that would be a nice note for this. But yeah, the first, 5 stars are more expensive than 4 stars, and 4 stars are a lot easier to get by proxy. Now I have this data from hutabot.moe, which is a website that has a lot of very useful tools, and one of these useful tools is the gacha rate calculator. So this is a 5-star rate of appearance. So for example, once you reach 160 pulls, there's a 100% chance that you will just have an E0 5-star at that point, and you have a 50% chance to get an E1 5-star at around 180 pulls. Let's look at the 4-star data now. As you can see here, it scales very linearly compared to the E0 5 stars because 5 stars have pity rates. And if we superimpose it, because the site doesn't provide it, I have to do this in GIMP. And there you go. Now, if you look at here, the 100% chance that you have an E0 5 star is 160. And if you look at the E6 4 star, the rate of it, it's at around 10%, which means at 160 pulls into the banner, it is statistically more likely that you have an E1 5-star already of the featured 5-star on the banner compared to an E6 4-star of your choice. Which means that if you just look at it in this way, then yes, it is cheaper to have an E1 5-star than it is to have an E6 4-star. Now, that isn't the full picture though. And I'm not going to blame anyone for misvaluing 4 stars because the truth is it's very hard to value them because 4 stars are so much more variable than 5 stars. Because 5 stars at least have a pity system, have a window of chance that you could get them, and it's definitely a lot more streamlined to where you could say, yes, this team has a certain level of cost that a lot of people will generally agree on. But for 4 stars, that's not really the case because there's a bunch of people out there that could have went 300 pulls and still never got an E4 4-star. There's people that have gone to 60 pulls and have the E6 4-star already. So the cost of a 4-star is very hard to pin down, and a lot of people when they just see E6 4-star do not realize this and just think, oh, E6 4-star, that's cheaper than an E0 5-star, not knowing the nuances that comes into it, and it leads to a bunch of disappointment if they try to evaluate an E6 4-star to the same level as 5 stars. You also have a bunch of other factors too, like 4-star selectors, making sure that some characters are a lot easier to get. Like for example, an E1 Gallagher means that you only need around 4 more copies if you really want to E6 him. Or wait, no, 5 more copies, yeah. And you also have to consider too that this is cumulative. So for example, Gallagher was showing up on Acheron's banner and Firefly's banner. If you put 70 pulls on each of those banners, then for Acheron and Firefly you only get up to this 70% chance, but for Gallagher it's cumulative, so 140 pulls. This also isn't showing the other half also, which is light cones, and then we get into some really deep territory. because there's light cones like Dance 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 that absolutely is a necessity for some runs. Like it's statistically a lot easier to get an E0 Robin signature light cone than it is to get a Dance 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 to S5. I myself don't have an S5 Memories of the Past, but I do have a signature Ron May light cone. So you could imagine that a lot of people are suffering from not having the S5 of 4-star light cones because it's just so variable on how many people actually have them. Let's move on to the second point, which is the teams are more accessible. 4-star only teams are a lot more accessible. A full team of 5 stars is not as accessible, and 4-star teams are something every account should have. Now, I do sort of agree in the face of it and the very surface level of it, but there is a bit of misconceptions to this because, as we've explained, an E6 4-star has some cadence to be as expensive or even more expensive than an E0 5-star. So, for example, if there's a showcase of a team of using, I don't know, Acheron, Black Swan, and Zhao Cho, then there's definitely not that many people that have the combination of those 3 units. But there's definitely a lot of people that just have one. There's definitely a lot of people that just have Black Swan. There's definitely a lot of people that just have Acheron or just have Zhao Cho. And you could think of alternative ways around it. And you could think of alternatives to replace those teams that do not have those units. And if you look at it that way, then how much more cost are you actually cutting out from removing Acheron and using someone like, let's say, your free standard Welt? How much really are you just cutting down the cost? Because if you look at an E6 Guinaifen, then a Zhao Cho probably is cheaper. So when you look at it like that, how expensive really is a full team of 5 stars than it is a full team of E6 4 stars? We've already illustrated some points where the contrary isn't always true. And lastly, 4-star only teams are more beginner friendly since they are more accessible, and 5 stars are a lot slower to come out and rerun. Now, I feel like this is the most harmful one because it leads to a lot of people trying it for themselves, not realizing the implications of 4-star only runs. 4-star only runs are in general just weaker than 5-star only runs. That's just it, right? And what it demands from you the most is your strength in relics. Misha definitely needs more stronger relics than Jing Liu, let's say. Boot Hill definitely needs less stronger relics than, let's say, Luca. It's just a fact. And even if you do have those builds, it's also contingent on the strength of the player. You need a lot more strategy and a lot more knowledge in the game to pull off an E6 4-star run than just a full team on E0 5 stars. Because they're weaker and they definitely need a lot more thinking compared to other units. So it's not actually beginner friendly because you do need a certain level amount of knowledge and investment into your characters to know what you're doing, that you wouldn't be considered a beginner anymore. You're just a veteran player playing with a beginner account. So I feel like overall, this is kind of a critique of the cost system in general, because we can't pinpoint how much an E2 costs and how much it could invest in your character. Like we could be pretty sure that an E2 Firefly is like a high investment character, whereas with an E6 4-star, statistically, you may get E2 Firefly first before them, but we can't be sure. So when we're in this sort of community where a lot of people run 4-star only runs and a lot of people run E0 5-star only runs, then you have this confusion of people thinking one is more superior than the other when we can't really be sure of one and the other one is already, studied and well documented. The reality is kind of sad though, that even though we proved in this video, and many people have proven it over the years in Genshin too, is that E6 4-star should be around the level of an E1 5-star. Like they by all means should be, by the rate of their appearance and their rarity and how much they show up in selectors. They could balance it that way. But really, even E6 4-stars just competing with E0 5-stars is such a pipe dream that, I don't know, I feel like they kind of misvalued what a 4-star should mean. But I hope that Hoyo fixes it, at least. So we definitely need a bit more polishing in the cost system in the community in general. And I feel like we should be looking at things a lot more differently. I don't know what the solution to this is, but we should have a better system that accurately represents the cost of units. And that's probably the best thing that we could research of as of now, because a lot of people are going to be falling for those kind of traps. So I'm not sure really if that's going to dissuade a bunch of people, but yeah. So I hope you guys like this video. This was a long one. I'm so sorry. Comment down below what you think about 4 stars. And if you enjoyed this video, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff. And I'll see you next week, I think. Yeah, sure, next week. See ya. Bye.